How to make a bar chart in Google Sheets. Start in the Google landing page. Make sure you're signed in to an account and click on this Google Apps menu and choose Sheets. Open up a blank sheet. Give it a title. And then the first important thing to know is when you're going to make a graph, that's a separate step from analyzing data. So you can calculate your averages however you want. Usually when you make a bar graph, you're going to be starting with two or more categories and numbers representing each of those categories. So, for instance, maybe you had two different conditions in which you played a game, and then you have the average score that you got in those conditions. And getting those averages is the first step that you should do when you're analyzing your data. You can do it on paper. You can do it in a spreadsheet. But don't then try to turn those numbers into a graph. If you need to, click Add Sheet and get a blank one so that you have a fresh area to work in. Okay, so you've got two or more averages that you want to compare using a bar graph. The first thing to do is type labels. So for the silly example that I use in one of my labs, maybe I played the game with my hat on and compared that to playing the game with my hat off. And then next to the labels, which are in rows, one on top of the other, type the numbers, in this case the average scores. Maybe it was 768 with my hat on, and it really was a lucky hat. So the other comparison score was 602. Okay, so I have two labels and two numbers corresponding to those labels. If I had three or more categories, I would continue on. I would just type more labels and more numbers next to them. Okay. At this point, you're ready to generate the graph. You're going to highlight the numbers and the labels. And then you're going to go to Insert, Chart, and click. Okay, so now Excel has made, or Sheets has made a chart based on those numbers. And it's a pie chart, and that's not the type of chart that you want if you're comparing two averages. But Sheets or Google didn't know exactly what type of study you were doing, so it took a guess. Instead of a pie chart, you want to click on Chart Type and choose Column Chart, which is normally called a bar graph. But for whatever reason, this name is being used. Get the two vertical columns, and that's a column chart. Okay. After choosing the correct chart type, I'm basically done making the graph, but there are a couple more things that you need to do to use it in your report. The first thing you need to do is make sure that the y-axis here is labeled. It's set up correctly where the minimum value is 0 and it goes a little bit above the maximum number that you had in your chart. And that's exactly what you want But now you just want a label there that shows what that number actually means. And to get that, right click within the chart area here and go to chart and axis titles. You can also get there probably other ways, but this is the setting you want, chart and axis titles, and click vertical axis title. Now you'll have the ability to change that title over here, and what you're going to want to do is just type the appropriate descriptor in the title text field there, and from my example it would be the average score. And that's it. I don't have to do anything else. And so if I click away into the sheet, for example, that change will be saved. That's all. I've made a bar chart. It's got labels underneath the bars. They show the difference between these two average scores. And I've labeled the y-axis. This is ready to use. And the way I would do that, I click on the chart again, and I click right here where these three dots are found, and I click download if I want to download an image, but I think it's easier just to copy the chart. That will go to my clipboard. Then I'll make my way to the document where I'm working on my report. And for this example, let's just assume it's a Google Doc. You would do the same thing if it was a Word document or whatever. And you'll have been working on your report. And have a lot of information that you've already entered. I type really fast. So now, remember you just copied the chart when you were back in your Google Sheets. You went copy right there. Navigate to a different window or different tab and find your report that you're working on in the word processor and paste it. And I can try to paste it right here. That's not enabled on my computer, so I have to use a keystroke combination, which is Control V to paste. So I hold down the Control key, and then at the same time I touch the V key, and I'm going to paste it unlinked because I don't really need to update that chart anymore. And it pastes, and now I have a nice clear, properly done image of that chart that I can put into my report. The only thing I still need to do is put a caption underneath the graph explaining what these bars mean, what they're talking about. And so I might write caption. average scores for the, and maybe I could say which game I played, with lucky hat on. And one of the important things that I've done, in addition to just sort of reminding people what the experiment was about, is I told what the sample size was for each of these averages. Okay, this bar is representing the average of 7 numbers, and it's important to kind of repeat that image or that information in different places so that your reader knows how much information is behind the simplified version that you're showing on the graph. So in this case, I had 7 scores there, and when my lucky hat was off, maybe the computer glitched or something because I wasn't wearing my lucky hat, and I lost one of my scores, or I had to scratch it. And so that's good information for the reader to have, to know that there was a little bit less information behind that average. So the caption just reminds the reader what the graph's about, and it clarifies the sample size. Another way to do this is to type n, which means sample size, equals 7 right there, and n equals 6 there. And however you explain it is fine, so long as you have that key piece of information, the sample size, in each of the 2 groups. All right, I hope this was useful. I really do recommend using Google Sheets as the way to make your graphs, and following that method, starting with a blank area within the spreadsheet, type just the labels, one above the other, corresponding numbers, one above the other, and then highlight them and go to Insert Chart to make the graph. Make sure the chart type is a column chart, and then add the title for the y-axis here to clarify what those numbers are. That's it, and thanks for watching. Also, if you have any questions, please message me from your Canvas inbox, and I'm happy to help.